Hello, everybody, and of course, welcome back to another episode of X Talking Ish with your boy X.
And this,
You already know what to do. If you are on Facebook, please make sure you like and share this broadcast. If you are on our Facebook page, go ahead and hit that like button so you can be, of course, updated on our Facebook page from time to time. And as well, if you are on YouTube, go ahead and hit that red subscribe button and that notification bell so you can be notified for shows like this one in the future.
ding,
Thank you for that, Ish. And as well, if you are on Twitter, go ahead and check us out at X Talking Ish on Twitter. We are streaming live on Periscope, and I also went ahead and retweeted everything on my personal page at X_Williams81, so you can check us out on there as well. So there are no excuses on how to view us because you can. And if you cannot check us out on the live show that we're having right now, you are more than welcome to, of course, revisit these shows on any streaming platform. And of course, also on our podcast, Ish, we've been getting some pretty cool reviews on our shows when it comes to either people listening through the podcast or actually watching on YouTube. So when I get reviews like that from people that I wouldn't expect for to be tuning into us, it definitely makes my heart a little happy because for me, it feels like we're actually doing this for what we intended to do this for. Obviously, it takes a while to build up a channel, but for the most part, I feel like we are starting in a good little area, and we're just going to continue to keep on building. But before we go into
yes,
these
sir.
topics, of course, as always, I got to check in on my boy Ish and see how you are doing tonight.
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right, man. Been a lot of busy things going on. Prepping for all of the fantasy work that's popping up and everything. But yeah, man, it's been pretty cool. How about you, man?
More of course, watching the kiddos, taking care of the kiddos. I'm actually off this week for work, so I'm just trying to catch up on other things within the house and just work wise and all that good stuff. So, other than that, just ready for the football season to be here. We are 30 days, officially 30 days out until the official
Yes,
kickoff
sir.
begins. This is going to be another one of those highly anticipated seasons. Last year, we talked about how the AFC West was supposed to be the greatest division of all time, right? It just didn't pan
Didn't
out
live
that
up to
way.
that.
I can see the same thing for this upcoming season. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the next couple of shows in regards of power ranking teams, surprise teams you don't expect to see coming out of nowhere, teams that are highly expected to do maybe go to the conference championship game or even the Super Bowl might not get there. So we'll talk about that, of course, in these upcoming weeks. Shout out to Justin Stabler, X Talking Ish. We back, in the words of my boy Justin Stabler. We back.
Be back.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So before we get into the rest of the topics for this week, let's go ahead and take it back to last week, all the way back to last week to the Pro Football Hall of Fame class and, of course, the Hall of Fame game as well. And first, let's go ahead and actually honor and acknowledge this year's class. And then we'll get into the actual game itself. We'll start off, of course, with Rondé Barber, Darrelle Revis, Joe Thomas, Zach Thomas, DeMarcus Ware, Don Cornell, Chuck Howley, Joe Kliko, and also Ken Riley. Everybody, of course, for the most part, is deserving, especially a guy like Ken Riley, who had to wait a pretty long time and unfortunately passed away before he could actually walk into the hall alive and well. It's good to see somebody like him that is actually still top five in interceptions in the NFL, which is something that he's had for 40 plus years now. That just goes to show you
Sure.
how good of a fucking player he was, especially doing this in an era where they were not throwing the ball around
They
like
weren't
that.
throwing it like that. I
Yeah, so
mean,
I mean that right there, you definitely got to tip your hat off to a guy like Ken Riley. But for the most part, I mean, besides obviously Joe Thomas, I mean, this is a very, very defensive oriented class. I mean, and it happens ish, right? You have one class that's mainly all offense, or
mhm.
one class that's a mix, or another class that's it represents the offensive line and defensive line and things of that nature. I'm pretty sure ish you've probably seen people feel like certain players probably should have been in this go around. Um, as we both know, ish we do not make any selections on who gets picked, but we also do know that there is a process. There's a political process in regards of how they go about picking. Darrelle Reeves and Joe Thomas, this was their first time on the ballot, and they were able to become first ballot Hall of Famers. Um, every situation is different. You know, just a couple of years ago, and I'll be the one that's going to keep beating that horse. Terrell Owens should have been a first round Hall of Famer. I
But
know,
if you don't leave this,
I,
like, just drop it.
I
You
know,
need
I
to
know.
stop.
People are
You
gonna
need to
hate me for
stop.
keep saying that, but I'm just saying it is what it is. And
No, it's not.
they
It is what it is.
it is what it is, because at the
No.
end of the day, we're really judging on what we've seen on the field and not all this extra crap that people want to make up to make it seem like there's some type of criteria
But he's in
to
the
get
Hall of
into
Fame.
the Hall of Fame. Then he should have been the first ballot, and there's other people that probably should have been
He's
first
in
ballot.
the Hall
But
of Fame.
okay, okay, I got you, I got you. We can have that debate all day, every day. I talked to Adrian about that a lot. He agrees with you when it comes to it. Doesn't matter if you first ballot or 100 ballot, as long as you in,
He
right?
in there. Yeah, it don't
But
matter.
but
First or last.
it's just the respect. It's just the respect. It low key kind of feels a little disrespectful when you're doing things like that. And I will say some people might. And I'll say this: I did see a lot of mixed reactions on Darrell Reeves getting into the Hall of Fame, and it's not about a. I don't think it's about first ballot. I just think some more people feel as though that. And I don't know how to explain it. Ish. I think a lot of people feel like Darrell Reeves wasn't really that good. I know it sounds crazy. It sounds crazy, Ish, but if you look at how people look at him, he wasn't the flashy, right? He wasn't the flashy quarterback like Deion. You know, he wasn't a fan favorite, maybe like a Champ Bailey, right? You know, he wasn't a guy that I would say will wow you on and off the field. But when it comes to technique, when it comes to being the late 2000s, early 2010s version of Deion, when it comes to shutting down that half of the field, he was that guy. And when you're able to get a compliment from Bill Belichick when it comes to, hey, we game planned for you to make sure that we didn't throw your way as much as we possibly could. I mean, it's one of the biggest compliments that you can get from a guy who some people consider the greatest coach of all time, or at least probably one of the greatest defensive minds of all time. Ish.
I mean, yeah, I think he had a good career. Um, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's the ultimate discussion that people have over, stats and stats versus impact. Because some people will say, well, he impacted the game so much that they didn't throw to him, so his stats weren't up there. Other people will say, well, he didn't have the stats, so how can he be in the Hall of Fame? But it's just like, I think there's a lot that goes into, like you already mentioned, a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of, honestly, there's a lot of opinion that goes into it, between the voters and everything. And it just depends on what they think and how they feel. And I know we talked about this kind of briefly. Asante Samuel probably sitting over there and saying it's the New York media that got him in there first ballot.
I was just about to bring it up. Yeah.
Not to bring up, an old argument, but hey, I mean, maybe a little bit. It could be a little bit of the New York media there, but hey, he got in there. There was, for a long time, I will say, you couldn't go anywhere without hearing about Revis Island. So that alone, maybe that helps you get in there. I don't know. I think honestly, we'll never be satisfied with the Hall of Fame, um, the induction situation. I think we'll just never be satisfied by it. There's always going to be
The actual
questions.
process, the actual process.
Yeah,
of
the
it.
process. I don't think we'll ever be satisfied by the process. I think when it comes down to it, when it boils down to it, at the end of the day, everybody has their own opinion, and you're never going to satisfy everyone. Like for me, I mean, I personally think my boy Chad, maybe he got a little say something there. Not necessarily and by no means am I saying he's a for sure. He should be in there.
You're
But
looking
I
at
think
the
there's a
numbers and the
conversation
production
to be
wise, right?
had.
You were looking at the numbers and production wise of that. Is that what you're going off of?
Yeah,
Oh,
and I
okay.
think there's a
And
conversation to be had.
I want to piggyback off that because you're not wrong, especially as a wide receiver. I mean, your numbers are definitely a lot more significant in that position than a couple of other positions because you can you don't have to go off of numbers off of all of the time on certain positions, but wide receiver just it is what it is on that instant. Justin Stabler says they're lowering the standards of Hall of Fame just because some people that's missing it feelings are getting hurt. I will say this. You brought up Chad Johnson. I want to bring up another guy who I feel like is Hall of Fame worthy, but because of the name that I'm about to say, a lot of people are going to be quick to just dismiss what I'm about to say. But you really have to go and look at his production, and anywhere that he landed, he produced. Brandon Marshall. I know how people feel about him when it comes to his bipolarness or mental episodes or whatever it is. When he was with the Bears, the Broncos, or the Dolphins, he was putting up 1,000-yard seasons every year. He is when you talk about production wise, he's a Hall of Famer. But because of the way they look at the Hall of Fame when it comes to everything you do on the field and off the field, even though again there's some people that are in the Hall of Fame who have done some things off the field that are still in there, Brandon Marshall deserves to be in that conversation. And I'm not saying this because he has his own podcast and he's probably advocating for himself. I'm just being honest. Again, if we're talking about production and the type of era that we were in, I like that Justin Saber brought this up too because I've seen a lot of arguments about London Fletcher. If you look at his production and his numbers with the Washington Redskins at the time, I mean, he's a Hall of Famer as well too. But again, unfortunately, the way that this is politicized. But I will say this too: Zach Thomas waited his turn. Zach Thomas deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I'm not going to throw dirt on Zach Thomas' name because somebody else deserves to be in there as well too. Both of those guys, I feel like, deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. But the way that the process is played out, we're not a part of it. So all we can do is just really just sit and wait who they pick and just really go from there.
Yeah,
Ish, any
100%.
last comments on this induction before we move on with the actual game itself?
No.
Alrighty then. Of course, congratulations to everybody that was inducted in this year's class. We'll see what happens next year. And of course, there was a game to be played after the actual induction, and it was, of course, the Cleveland Browns and the New York Jets. The Cleveland Browns beat the Jets 21-16. And of course, what we call the exhibition game, exhibition game of the season, the Hall of Fame game, because obviously the main people will not be playing, but you can make
No.
a name for yourself as a second or third string guy by putting on a decent performance. And I feel like the guy that definitely made a name for himself was DTR. If you
Yep.
checked out that game, Dorian Thomas Robinson definitely made a name for himself. Now, if you watched him back at UCLA, you probably feel as though that he's a guy that probably is good and probably can be great as
He
one
was
of those
decent. Yeah.
borderline. Yeah, yeah, but of course, in the NFL, it really just all depends on where you land, system wise. Obviously injuries. If somebody's in front of you, if somebody goes down, you might be able to get an opportunity. I think for the first time ish, and I know they mentioned this in the broadcast, but I was looking at it myself too. For the first time in a very, very long time with Cleveland, we're looking at the quarterback position for them like this actually can be a stable group. And depending on what happened with Watson, I expect Watson to have a bounce back year. I know nobody in Houston wants to hear that, but I expect Watson to be better, way better than last year. But even if he's not there as QB1, I've always was very high on Kellen Mond coming out of A&M. I thought that he would take the torch from Kirk Cousins in Minnesota and be the starting
Mhm.
quarterback after Kirk Cousins left. Obviously, that didn't happen. He goes to Cleveland. Um, I'm I'm still borderline right now when it comes to his performance in the Hall of Fame game. Again, I know that
Mhm.
everybody's playing against twos and threes, so you really can't see that good of a look. But if you are playing against twos and threes and you feel like you are a starter, you have to go out there and go show out. I think Dorian Thomas was able to take full advantage of his opportunity in comparison to Kellen Mond. But again, there's only one preseason game. We'll see what happens over the next couple more preseason games that Cleveland has. But right now, I'm impressed with DTR. Is your thoughts?
Yeah, like you said, definitely a chance to go out there and make a name for yourself if you a backup. And Dorian Thompson Robinson definitely went out and did that. His career at UCLA, I think there was a lot of ups and downs, but people could definitely see the upside. I was excited when I saw that the Browns picked him up because what better place than to go and sit behind Deshaun Watson. Even with them bringing in Kellen Mond, like I think that's a pretty solid quarterback room that they got there. And to see him come out and do what he did, that was exciting. But we have to keep it in perspective. Like you said, I mean, you're facing twos and threes. Although a performance like that could hurt you if you go out there and you don't perform against twos and threes, I do think that when you go out there and you do perform, there is just a little bit of, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves, right? And I think that's kind of where I'm at. I'm excited, but I'm not going to get ahead of myself. There's still a lot of time. There's still a lot he needs to learn. There's still a lot of things he needs to work on, but very encouraging to see him perform at that level so far this early in the game. I think that for me, this Hall of Fame game, I kind of watched it a little bit and then I was done. Because honestly speaking, yeah.
Yeah, let's be real. Most real football players that have actually played. I mean, no disrespect to anybody that hasn't played football. That's a big fan. I promise you, I'm not trying to disrespect you at all. Preseason games are very boring. I'm just being honest with you. After the first couple of drives in that first quarter, I don't care anymore. I'm just being. I want week one of the NFL season. I don't care for preseason games. But people that love
Right.
football that much, that just want to see mediocre football, y'all can enjoy that. If you want to continue to keep watching mediocre football when the season's over, you're more welcome to watch the XFL because I'm not doing it. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to and we'll segue it to the New York Jets. Of course, they play the Cleveland Browns. They will be debuting tonight on the new season of Hard Knocks, which is actually going on right now. So if you're not watching Hard Knocks and you are watching us, I definitely appreciate that because we will be on every Tuesday moving forward, and Hard Knocks will be on. So of course you have to pick your poison. If I was y'all, I mean, obviously I would watch X Talk and Ish. Duh, go back and watch Hard Knocks. That's what I'm about to do. But on a serious note, this is the second time now that the New York Jets are on Hard Knocks. Previously, they were on Hard Knocks with Rex Ryan when he was leading the helm with the Jets, and before the Hard Knocks crew came into New York, there were a lot of pushback by mainly Aaron Rodgers, right? Aaron Rodgers, and I feel like a couple of other guys within the organization that probably didn't want the cameras in at this point in time. Um, Maybe that was more so of Aaron wanting to have more private cohesiveness within this new group that he's joining. Didn't want everything to be out there in the open, but it's too
Mhm.
late. It is what it is, and I think we're gonna have a decent season. I mean, let's be real. I think most seasons of Hard Knocks is pretty good. Now you might have one season, two seasons where you're like, okay, this ain't that great. I think last year with the Detroit Lions was a good season. I mean, we saw the emergence of Jamal Williams. Obviously, Jamal Williams still doing his anime stuff, and people love him for
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
We have an emergence of Malcolm Rodriguez, a linebacker that played for the Lions, like I said last year, and just showing
Mhm.
how some of these twos and threes are able to work themselves up into a starting role. I think we can see that with the Jets, both sides of the ball. Of course, obviously, besides the offensive side of the ball with Aaron Rodgers, we're going to see a lot of Sauce Gardner. Obviously, I'm pretty sure they'll be talking about Quentin Williams and his new contract. So the Jets, they are in the news for, of course, the right reasons. They haven't done anything silly so far with anything that New York usually
So
does when
far.
it comes to being a part of the Jets. But I expect this season of Hard Knocks to be a vintage Hard Knocks season ish.
I'm not looking forward to it. I'm not looking forward to the Hard Knock season. I'm not even gonna. I'm probably gonna watch a couple episodes. I don't really know too much about that. I don't care too much about it. I mean, not to say that I don't like the Jets, but to be honest, I don't know that they're going to be that entertaining. They're talking about limiting what they allow the cameras in to see, so on and so forth. Like, yeah, nah, all of this is the makeup. All this sounds like the makeup of one boring ass season. If I'm just keeping it 100, like it just doesn't sound like it's gonna be that great. It doesn't sound like Aaron Rodgers. I'm not that interested in watching Aaron Rodgers on Hard Knocks. If I'm just keeping it a buck, he's not the most entertaining quarterback to me. He just talks a bunch of nonsense most of the time. Um, Sauce to me, I don't feel like Sauce is that big a talker. Like Sauce really, to me, he really does what he's supposed to do. He shows out on the field, but I don't feel like he's that. I don't know how much content we're gonna get from Sauce, if I'm just being honest. So maybe I'll check out the first episode and see if it's looking like anything, and then maybe I'll come back on next week and revise my statement. But as of right now, yeah, ain't nobody checking for that.
Justin Stabler mentioned this is regarding the last topic we were talking about when it comes to Hall of Fame. He says it's a popularity contest now. If they got along with the media, they get in over people that didn't. Justin Stabler also says preseason games not boring. It's a chance for others to earn a spot on the roster as underdog story of them beating the odds. You're not wrong on your statement, but again, it's still boring. So
I think
we
if
can
it's
disagree.
if
We can
it's
disagree
your
on that all we
team,
want to.
I think if it's your team, it's entertaining because you checking for the people on your team that's going to make up some of those depth positions. But if it's not your team, then it's hella boring because I don't care who makes up the depth positions for the Tennessee Titans. All I know is I want to know who going to be out there on the field when we play in the Tennessee Titans come crunch time. I don't care about their depth.
You don't care about the 48th guy on the roster?
Just to be honest. I mean, not really. The impact that person gonna have, they'll have it on special teams and whatnot. But really, am I really checking for them? Like, nah, not really. I'm just hoping that you go out there and do what you're supposed to do when you get on the field. But outside of that, I'm not really checking for you. So, other than my own team or even the local team, like the Texans, like I'll check out the Texans preseason game just to see what they looking like, and then quickly turn the channel because it's going to be continued garbage from this organization. No, I'm joking. I'm actually, I'm looking to see what they're going to do this year.
I think we're all excited to see what the Texans looking like.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what they're going to do this year. But in all reality, like, yeah, other than like the local team and your actual team, I don't think that people really check in preseason like that. Most people don't even care or know any of the depth people behind their starters unless their starter gets hurt, and then they start hearing, a name of the backup's backup possibly getting in, and then they start, trying to Google and look up articles on this person and see what star rating they had back in high school.
There goes Justin with everybody's love for the game is different. I see. Here we go. Here we go with all that.
Yes.
This is what happens when folks from Alabama want to move to Texas. Was be thinking was be thinking they know more football than we do, but it's all good. I understand. I love you, Justin. I love you. But on a serious note, though, when it comes to what Justin is saying, I do agree when it comes to being able to make a name for yourself. Obviously, a guy like Terrell Davis obviously became Hall of Famer from special teams, of course, and then also obviously Victor Cruz. Victor Cruz made a name for himself during preseason, and also on the New York Jets Hard Knocks, he was somebody that they were like, "Who the hell is this guy?" So again, it all plays one another. Look, we're all agreeing / disagreeing at the same time when it comes to what we're talking about. It is what it is. So let's go ahead and move on, and hopefully we'll get a little more insight on this show in regards of the actual personal life and also on life on the field with Netflix series Quarterback. And I'm happy Justin is actually still on the show because I know when the series first kicked off and I was watching a couple of episodes of it, I stated that so far it looks pretty cool. It's not anything like mind blowing, like, oh my God, it's the greatest series ever. But I just thought it was interesting. I felt like towards the end of the season, I felt like it got even better. A lot of people, from what I've seen, enjoyed the new series. The only real critic that I saw at the time was my boy Justin Stabler. So I'm hoping that he's still on here to let us know how he feels about the series. And also, we got to remind everybody he used to play linebacker. So if he's not as biased, he might actually give us a real opinion about it because he hates quarterbacks and he wants all quarterbacks to pretty much, have their head in the dirt. So I don't expect him to say anything nice about this series. But for us offensive people, let us know how y'all felt about the show. I would love to hear you guys' input. And I'll start this off with Ish. How do you feel about this past season? And do you think moving forward, this can be a show that becomes a staple within the NFL, like a Hard Knocks, like a top 100 players, in the NFL, any one of those shows. Can we actually see something like this being a flagship channel?
I'm just gonna be honest. I wasn't really checking for the show when it first came out, and it actually had been out for a long time. You had watched it, talked about it, and everything before I even went and watched a couple of episodes. Because honestly speaking, Patrick Mahomes, I get enough of Patrick Mahomes throughout the season, so I didn't need to see more of Patrick Mahomes in the off season, just for shits and giggles. And then we all know how I feel about Captain America, so I wasn't really trying to check for him either. And then Marcus Mariota, yeah, no, not that interesting to me. So I've watched plenty of shows like this, QB1, all those shows that kind of do similar things. I've seen those, so I kind of knew what to expect going into it. And I mean, like you said, nothing groundbreaking, but it was pretty cool. It was a nice little insight into it. I think it could definitely be something that could be a staple. It could also be something that could quickly backfire on people. Like they have Pat Mahomes in there talking about how he, months in advance had gotten rented an Airbnb and all that stuff. Like that very much could backfire on you if it come out and your team like don't make the Super Bowl or something like that. So I mean, it's one of those things where I can see the good in it. I can see the bad in it. I can see why people might not want to do that, might not want to give that level of insight and behind the scenes content. But at the same time, this season it was I mean, honestly speaking, I was more interested in the documentary about my boy Johnny Manziel, and I went and
Oh
checked that
Lord!
this morning because
Oh
I wanted to
Lord!
go see what they were talking about with Johnny Football, and that man is crazy. Watch that man say he watched zero film, zero. How they hit your agent up and say, yeah, his iPad hours is 0.00.
Hold on. So you tell me, is that documentary already out? Because I haven't
It's
looked at
out,
it.
bro. It's
Oh,
out.
okay.
Checked
It's
it this
called
morning. I
Untold.
checked it this
It's called
morning because
Untold.
I
They're
had
going
to
to be
laugh a
doing.
little bit. At the time I was rooting for my man Johnny. I think him being on the show like quarterback would have been hilarious. But there's no way they could have got that man on there because he would have been about the league a lot faster than he was. So yeah. But anyway, yeah, it's out, bro. It's out. I was checking for that. I wasn't too much checking for the regular quarterback stuff because I mean, honestly speaking, you're not gonna get too much. It's just a little bit more inside, but nothing too crazy.
Now, I know about the Untold series. They're supposed to be doing Johnny Football. Also, of course, the Miami team. Who I'm sorry, not the Miami team. I'm sorry, the Florida team, the University of
Oh
Florida team with Tim
yeah.
Tebow, Cam Newton, Aaron Hernandez. That's what I've been waiting on for 20 years. I've been waiting for that documentary for somebody to do that for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't wait for that to come out. I will check out the Johnny Football probably sometime this week. But overall, I'm not going to sway too much from this topic that we're talking about. But it's for me is interesting to see how we can make light of Johnny Football for all of the shortcomings when all we do is throw nothing but dirt on Jamarcus Russell. And again, I promise you, I'm not trying to make this a race thing at all. I promise you, I'm not. I'm not. I'm just being honest when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to Johnny Football underachieved tremendously when it comes to what he was supposed to do in the league. Jamarcus Russell underachieved tremendously drinking on, sipping on codeine, not watching film right. There was, of course, the story of him was he coach gave him a DVD to watch film. He came back saying that he watched film, and
It
the
was a
coach
blank
told him
tape.
there was nothing on there. Okay, so this isn't anything new. And nothing that Johnny Football did do or didn't do is nothing new. It just goes to show you that he didn't really. I mean, he cared a little bit because he was good at football, but he cared more about the limelight than the actual work that you need to put in to be a fucking
Yeah.
NFL quarterback. So for me, it's like, look, I understand the entertainment part as in it's funny to watch him, I guess, pretty much destroy his own life in front of our eyes. But in reality, just him and Todd Marvinovich and all these other quarterbacks that I can keep naming and naming and naming, every guy will look back 20 years from now, 30 years from now, and said, man, I had this opportunity and I blew it. Man, if I was just this, if I would have just buckled down, I'm never going to feel sorry for Johnny Football because he comes from oil money. I'm not going to feel bad for Johnny Manziel because he had everything laid out for him on a silver platter and he still couldn't get it done. So if he wants to enjoy his time with Drake and go to parties with Drake and pop all these bottles and do this, that, and third, and all that fun stuff, live your life the way you want to. But I'm not going to listen to the sob story from Johnny Football talking about.
Oh, it wasn't a sob story.
Not you. I'm just talking about whenever I watch it and I just see him talking about, I could have been so much better if I actually watched film. So you're telling me you could have been good if you actually did your job. That's what you're telling me. No, we're not gonna. No, I'm just my opinion. All right, Fractured Walnut, one of our favorites, of course, back on the show. He says, "Hey, we back for the season, or is this just a special?" No, we back. We back, Playboy. We back for the most part, as long as our kids is able to allow us to. Justice Stable also says, "I think it was okay, but it flipped to a Pat Mahomes special. The best thing about it was them showing players it's okay. I'm pretty sure it's okay to talk to professionals about their mental health and how it makes them feel on and off the field. It actually said it makes it okay." Also, Fracture One that says, "Yep, it's on the flicks." He was talking about the Johnny Football situation. And thank you for bringing this up as well, Fractured. Again, he brought it up literally around the same time I was bringing it up. Jamarcus Russell or Johnny Football as worst QB of our generation. He's asking which one would be the worst. We'll take your pick, Ish.
Ooh, it's hard for me to say. I think Jamarcus Russell, he was drafted so much higher than Johnny Football, even though he didn't have necessarily he had a lot of hype, but I think nowhere near the hype that Johnny Football had. So a lot of people would easily default and say Johnny Football, but I think it has to be Jamarcus Russell because he had all those things that football scouts and purists really love. He had the size, he had the arm, he played at LSU. Like he had all these things.
Yes, because LSU produced so many great quarterbacks.
I'm just saying he had all these things going for him. Meanwhile, Johnny Football, let's be honest, anybody that was really doing their homework at the time when Johnny was coming out, we all knew, listen, there's a lot of hype around Johnny, but Johnny is a little quarterback trying to do a little bit too much he was basically in the Kevin Samuelin offense. So you're throwing the ball a bunch in the spread, you running the ball, you running a lot. Like there's so much that was going on there that we knew it was an uphill battle for Johnny, regardless of what the hype was.
Now, let me go ahead and finish it off so we can go ahead and move on. I'm gonna say Johnny Football mainly because he coming in. It's not just about the hype. It's what he did as a freshman, right? Being Alabama is what he was able to do when it comes to winning the Heisman.
That's part of the hype.
It's everything that you were able to do in college that a lot of people were expecting you to translate over to the NFL. That didn't happen. Remember, Skip Bayless was talking about how he's going to be a greater athlete in the city of Cleveland over LeBron. All the other silly crap that was going on when Johnny Football was in Cleveland. This is the same guy that was literally flicking people off on the field, right? So again, let's pump our brakes when it comes to Johnny Football because I'm living in a state like Texas. I have to hear about this man all the time when it comes to being such an underachiever who wants to now build a nightclub in College Station because it's probably something he should have been did 10 years ago. He probably would have been made millions and billions of dollars off of that alone. It blows my mind because the mediocrity of this individual is crazy. Anyways, Justin Staples said, let's not forget Baker Mayfield is everything they thought Lamar was going to be. And worse, Baker hasn't finished top 10 in any category since he's been in. Fraction One also says, when it comes to Texas football at QB, the first two names that are brought up are BY and Johnny. I will say in this generation. Yeah, in this generation. And shout out to Travis Crow. He says, what's good, fellas? Football is here. Yes, sir, it is. Yes, sir, it is. Now, before we move on, last question for everybody before we move on. What quarterback would you like to see on next season's quarterback? Now, the reason why I bring this up is because if you haven't heard, there are people that have been saying that quarterbacks have been declining to be on next season's quarterback. But from what I'm hearing, they're actually declining because they want to keep everything under wraps on who's going to be the next three quarterbacks for next season. So I think that's pretty interesting. So if you have three quarterbacks in your head, who are the 3 quarterbacks that you would like for Netflix series quarterback to follow next season? Ish, I'll start with you, and whoever's tuning in, go ahead and give us your 3 quarterbacks as well.
No, for sure. I want to see Danny Dimes, Lamar Jackson, and then who will my third be? I'm trying to think. I'm not really interested in seeing Josh Allen or Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert just off the top. Oh, Russell Wilson. I love to see his comeback.
Okay.
Let's ride, Russell. Hey, I want
Okay.
to see that ride. I want to see Russell ride back into the limelight. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
those would be my
I'm not
three
mad
for
at those.
sure.
I would like to see Jalen Hurts. I'd like to
Oh
see
yeah,
how his
Jalen
season
Hurts is
plays out
doing.
after losing the Super Bowl. I would like to see Geno Smith. Again, I know these are not sexy names. I know, but I want to see how. I think you can kind of compare him to Kirk Cousins when it comes to that journey, being a quarterback that's been in the league for a while, and
Mhm.
then Trevor Lawrence. I want to see sunshine. I think a young quarterback like
Oh,
that,
he's a
especially
boy.
coming off of a playoff berth, and then also we can also obviously hear from his experience the
Ooh,
transition
Brock
from
Purdy.
Urban Meyer to, of course, Doug Peterson now. So I would like to see something like that. Let me get to the comment section right quick. Fraction One says, I want to see some rookies and or QBs who are struggling.
I don't
Uh,
think they'll do rookies because of the time commitment. So
yes, I
that
definitely agree on that.
that
Just as
could
Saber
be.
says, none of those entitled and protected testosterone challenge individuals. Again, as I told y'all, he's a linebacker, so he doesn't care too much for the quarterbacks. Lee also says Burrow accepted, so that'll be good to see. Well, it depends on if Burrow is even healthy enough to be able to put on the performance. That's really what we'll have to figure out on that one. He also says it would be cool to see Jalen Hurts and maybe a journeyman like Carson Wentz just to see his huge fall and whatnot. Can Carson Wentz like just not get hurt first before we talk about
He
following
got to
him
be on the
around with
team
cameras, please?
first.
That too. That might help. Can he actually get on the team? We'll come back to that. Fraction One says Brock Purdy, AR-15, and Hurts.
I like the Brock Purdy one. That'd be an interesting one to have.
I mean,
I like
I'm not
Hurts. I think Hurts
I'm
would be
not mad,
good.
but a
I like
second
the
year
Brock Purdy
guy. I mean,
because you got the
coming
Trey
back from the
Lance
injury.
dynamic and everything over there. So
Yeah.
that's kind of interesting.
I mean, I'm not mad at that, but it's interesting. All right, another TV topic, NFL Network's top 100 players of 2023. We're not going to recap all 100 players, but we'll just, of course, give you guys the top 10 that everybody has uh, was able to, of course, agree upon. I would guess you would say on that realm. Now, remember, everyone, this is a list that is um, put together by the actual players in the NFL. So this isn't a media, this isn't fans, this isn't who your best friend feel like is the best player. This is on the players, and I've seen a lot of pushback this season when it comes to certain rankings from guys like Austin Eckler and I mean the list goes on and on when it comes to how some players shouldn't be above certain players. Some players shouldn't even be on the list. Some people that weren't on the list should be on the list. And I think with those players, mainly are their linemen, especially offensive linemen. Let's just be honest. Offensive linemen are not really that sexy to talk about unless you know that this guy's a stone cold, Trent Williams, one of those guys when it comes to this guy's a beast. Even on the defensive line, I know out of top 10, you have the only top 10 player there is Chris Jones. Now, there's probably a couple other defensive tackles or ends that could probably be on that top 10
Oh, Nick
list.
Bosa.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, it could be another. Oh, my apologies. I missed Nick Bosa. My bad. My apologies. But I'm just saying there's other guys that probably could be in that top 10 as well, too. But for the most part, some of these lists really are popularity contests, kind of going back to the Hall of Fame situation. But for the most part, is just talk about it right quick. And also, people that are tuning in, how did y'all feel about the overall list? And did they get it right? Ish?
I ignore it because it's just a bunch of opinions that people have. Regardless, I don't care. Rank them however you want to rank them. Who? I honestly don't understand the whole like need to rank players against each other. Like we all have eyes, we all can see, we know good players, we know bad players, and I think we should just appreciate everybody for what they bring to the table. We don't necessarily got to rank them against each other. That's just how I kind of look at it. Let's just express more positivity and just do what we got to do. Why we even got to rank them? Why we care? And especially across position, like, okay, you got Tyreek Hill at number 7, and you got Travis Kelce at number 5. Like, what does that really mean? I don't know. They're two different positions.
If
So you tell me.
y'all can't tell, Ish is very excited for this upcoming season. You can just hear it from his voice when it comes to all these lists and shows that we're talking about.
Yeah, these lists, bro. I don't know, man. These lists they're not doing it for me, man. I'm ready to get back to the actual football. I'm done with the list. All these shows that been on, I'm done with them. I want the football back. And the Hall of Fame game. Nobody say anything about that stupid Hall of Fame game because that wasn't enough. Okay, that wasn't enough.
Well, Ish, tell us how you really feel, huh?
I need football back. I'm telling you right now. I need the football back, please.
So I'm not mad on how you feel because honestly, I feel the same way. The list is cool and all. I mean, they've been doing this for almost 10 years now.
Yeah.
Everybody's gonna have gonna feel some type of way about this list, no matter if it's right or wrong. Like you said, it's just a whole bunch of opinions. I think it is interesting, though, how players that are in the league can see things a certain way, and people that play football, they're obviously not in the league, can see things a different way as well too. And I'll go back just a couple of years ago. I was having a conversation with Elandon when it comes to Jameis Winston, and I don't want to put him out there, but he just pretty much was saying that he didn't feel as though that Jameis Winston was going to start that upcoming year when he first joined the Saints. And I just pretty much broke it down to him saying, why wouldn't he start? He's been the guy that was able to be, a 4,000-yard passer. As long as you get him in the right system, he's healthy. He could do A, B, and C. He had a good year. Of course, last year he got hurt. But the point is that none of us as football players really see things on the same level unless it's who's the best player in the NFL, which is we're all pretty much agreed that's Patrick Mahomes, right? And everybody else is just kind of chasing Patrick Mahomes. But a lot of these top 10 picks can be switched around. I mean, Justin Jefferson could easily be number 3 or 4. Jalen Hurts easily could be number 2. Travis Kelce could drop down to 7 or 8. Tyreek Hill can easily be up. So this list and any of these lists are never going to be perfect. But I will say that if I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan, I mean, damn, we got 3 guys in the top 10. I mean, I'm assuming probably have 7, 8, or even 9 players in the top 100. I mean, this is what a dynasty is about right here. I mean, the Kansas City fan base talk about how
you said it, not me.
I'm just being. I mean, look, I keep it real on this show. I keep it real in the life when it comes to football and all these things of nature and whatnot. It's on the Chiefs now to capitalize on this window of really, really good opportunity to try to win a Super Bowl this upcoming year and the year, next year, and just try to, because we know when it comes to football, this sport, it's not like baseball or basketball where you can say, hey, it's all good. We'll come back next year. And we saw the Warriors did it a couple years ago where they were just like, we're going to take this L this season and we'll come back next season and win a championship, which they did. You can see it in baseball where, as long as you have a strong enough team, you can come back the year following. In football, majority of the time, especially if you get the Super Bowl and you lose, you do not get back.
Yeah.
There are times where even if you do win a Super Bowl, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to go back the next year or even be a great team moving forward, because obviously
the Rams,
other players going to other teams, get bigger contracts. Other things just happen to where every season isn't the same. That's why when you have successful successful coaches like Bill Belichick, they make sure that is drilled in your head that that this season is a new season. So do not come in here with that last year's Super Bowl crap, because this season is a completely different season. the great thing about the Kansas City Chiefs is that you have obviously the same coach, the same quarterback, the same GM, the same ownership for the last however many years now. And it's either you get in with the system or you're going to get the hell on elsewhere, right? We saw with Tyreek Hill, and there's no disrespect to Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill wanted his money. They said, hey, go get your money, but we're going to keep on with this ship. And the rest is history for right now. And same thing with Chris Jones. We're going to have to see what type of money the Kansas City Chiefs organization are deciding to give him, or will they say, hey, we love you, Chris, but if you want $30-something million a year, you got to go somewhere else and find that. It's going to be very interesting to see how Kansas City is able to rearrange their deck of cards to be able to play this out as long as they possibly can. Ish.
Yeah, no, like you said, it is, as a Kansas City fan, it is great to see that the GM's players of the league, they rate the players on the Chiefs as highly as they do, but to me that just adds more pressure to go out there and perform, right? Like you got to go out there, you got to do something about it. You got to show everybody that those rankings are that there's something behind them, right? Even though we say like it's just people's opinions, it doesn't really matter. But there's a little bit of ego there that it does matter a bit, and we want to show everybody that we do have a bunch of the best players in the league, and especially when you got a quarterback like Pat Mahomes, who has, we'll say hasn't completely capitalized on what he could be making in the market in order to keep some of these players on the team. If we weren't able to keep Tyreek there, but I mean, there have been other ways that they've been able to utilize that money that he could be taking. Yeah, that's how you build a dynasty. We've seen it with the Patriots before. That's really how it's done, and maybe it'll continue. Who knows? There's a lot that has to go right for you to make it to the Super Bowl, and it'll be interesting to see if some of these players that are ranked in that top 10, what impact they're able to bring and leading their teams back, hopefully to a conference championship game, maybe to the Super Bowl. Maybe some of them make it further in the playoffs than they did last year. Like, it'll be interesting to see how that shakes up. So that's one of the things that has me excited for this season, because I feel like this season, more so than any other season, man, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of teams that we're looking at. We're like, hey, they could definitely step in. A lot of people looking at the Chiefs and saying, oh, the Chiefs are kind of stacked, but hey, Buffalo made some moves. I'm excited to see what they bring to the table. I think that I still think the Chargers have a strong team, and we're gonna get into that later. In the later episode, when we do our preview for the season and all those predictions and everything. But yeah, this list, all it does is just put a chip on some people's shoulder, and
because everybody watching. I mean, the same way we saw on the show on quarterback. Everybody watching ESPN, everybody watch Fox, NFL Network. Even if you don't watch it, sooner or later it'll pop up on your screen because so and so said something about Patrick Mahomes, or so and so said something about Joe Burrow, or whatever it is. It's gonna get back to you, one way or another. It just it is what it is. Fresh one that says, will the Chiefs be the first team to three-peat since Brady and the Pats? Now, let's be technical. Technically, Brady did not three-peat. Brady went back-to-back. The Patriots did not three-peat. The last time we had any type of three-peat in the NFL, you have to go all the way back to 1965 to 67. That was the Green Bay Packers. That was the one and only team that went ahead and three-peated. Now, if that's the case, I'm going to be completely honest. If you get a 3P in the NFL in this generation, you're dynastied out. Like there's no way around it. There's no way that anybody can take that away from you, because it's so much harder nowadays than ever before to even try to even reach that type of significance when it comes to the championships part. But if I'm the Chiefs and if I'm Andy Reid, let's just take every year, every game, one game at a time, because once we start thinking ahead too much, all of a sudden things start unraveling and starting looking a little bit more ugly.
Once we
So,
start renting out Airbnbs, things can
oh
turn.
Lord. Now I will say that was look, that's some damn confidence within yourself, your team, all that stuff to be able to do something like that. I mean, worst case scenario, you can rent it out. I'm sorry, you can reserve it, and if you didn't get to the Super Bowl, you can just cancel the reservation, right?
Sure.
Right. I mean, it's not like he ain't got money
I
to
mean,
pay for the cancellation
yeah,
fee.
yeah. I mean, he got the money to do that, but still.
I'm about to say Patrick Mahomes was worried about the price going up on Airbnb. I'm like, sir, you signed a $500,000 contract, sir.
$500 million.
Sir, you'll be fine. I'm pretty sure you will be. All right, let's get to these training camp updates. We won't hold you guys too much longer. Just want to, of course, update around the league. And unfortunately, once training camp starts, we start hearing, unfortunately, more of the bad news than good. Injuries all around the league right now when it comes to ACL tears, pec tear, just unfortunate news for certain players already out for the season before the season even started. Just here in Houston, of course, heard the report from Quisenberry towards ACL and MCL. Of course, he'll be out for the rest of the season. Um, it's it's very disheartening when you hear things like that, especially a guy from the Broncos. I can't remember his name right now. He tore his Achilles after coming back
Oh yeah,
from being
yeah.
injured as well. Again, I can't remember his name. I know somebody will help me out in the comment section. But to hear some of these stories, it just definitely is. It's heartbreaking because obviously, we know these guys have tried hard. And once again, thank you, Lee, Tim Patrick from the Broncos. I knew somebody would assist me on that one. And to be so close, and not be able to get to the ultimate goal, which is start week one. That makes you question everything. It makes you question: am I even supposed to be playing football? Do I even want to be here? Can I go do something else? It's mentally challenging at that point. If you've had injuries, I've had injuries. It's not about the injury itself. It's the rehab process that
Yeah.
really breaks you down as an athlete when it comes to all the preparation by yourself. You having to watch everybody out there go. It really feels like a SpongeBob meme when it comes to Squidward standing in front of his window watching Patrick and SpongeBob frolic around in his front yard while you just sitting up there in the room. And it gets depressing at times to where do you want to continue to put your body on the line for something that sometimes feel like it doesn't love you back?
Yeah.
Fraction One says, what do you think about Bijan being listed as third string at the moment?
Ignore that. Ignore that. They just creating buzz and headlines. Ignore them. We all know where he'll be at the beginning of the
Because
season.
I'm pretty sure if you drafting a running back first round, I'm assuming he will be starting week one.
I mean, and
I could be wrong, but
all these teams are creating buzz and stuff. Let's just be honest. It's similar to the situation in Houston where they got Davis Mills alternating snaps with CJ Stroud. Like all of that noise and nonsense. Gardner Minshew splitting snaps with AR-15. All of that is just like, it sounds good. We all know it's short lived.
Lee says Tim Patrick injury path these last 2 years is identical to Klay Thompson. So sad to see. Wonder if he'll be able to pull a Klay and come back next year. He's a great dude and player. Let's head over to the East Coast. I guess technically Southeast when it comes to Tampa. We talked about quarterback splitting reps. Now that Brady will not be there anymore, I think that is definitely the biggest question mark on that team right now when it comes to will they be able to get some type of consistent quarterback play from that position. I've heard nothing but not good news from Baker this training camp. Haven't really heard too much about Kyle Trask, but seems as though right now, if I'm a betting man, Todd Bowles better be careful. He might be that first coach to get fired this upcoming season.
It's highly likely. I'm just going to be honest. It's highly likely. That team's not going to be great either way, but yeah, it's not looking too good out the gate for them.
Fresh One says Kyle Trash for me. Baker is done. Also, of course, we talked about him a couple of segments ago. Watch out for Carson Wentz. He was already a guy that was talked about maybe being a part of that quarterback group just a couple weeks ago. Obviously, he didn't sign with that team. There are a lot of free agents at the moment that are still waiting for players to get hurt before they slip in and be able to pick up where certain people left off. And I will talk about the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions made a very under the table move and signing Teddy Bridgewater, the backup role. I think that was a great decision from the Lions to be able to do that. As well with who else? I lost my train of thought. But anywho, Fracture One says Baker starts, head coach is fired by week 4. Lee also says Bucks needs to call Jameis back. It'd be an interesting reunion. I don't know if that happens, but it'd be interesting. Overall, again, when it comes to training camp, look, we're in the middle of it for the players and obviously us as spectators itself. This is the point in time of training camp where it's starting to get a little boring, a little mundane, a little routine, to where most people are ready to hit other people besides their own players. We, of course, every training camp, we hear nothing but the fights, of course, that ensue amongst teammates. We're at the point where people want to hit other people besides their own teammates. Once we get into these joint practices, we'll hear about fights that happen in joint practices. That's going to happen too. But overall, let's just hurry up and get to week 1 without anybody breaking something or hurting something that's going to be detrimental to your team. Because we want
any more suspensions.
That too. Speaking of suspensions, thank you that you brought that up. New Orleans Saints, they decided to not sign just yet because they were planning on signing Kareem Hunt, but apparently Kareem Hunt has not signed just yet, and he will be taking another visit with another team after today. But it looks like the New Orleans Saints are still maybe looking for another piece at running back to plug in with Jamal Williams, because obviously Kamara will be out for the first 3 weeks of the season. And again, that goes back to the free agent class that I was talking about. There are some pretty decent names on that list, but one thing that I know we don't talk about a lot, but I talk about when it comes to a lot of people's because some people have been in either leagues, football, basketball, baseball, for so long, some people write off of their last name, right? Like a Patrick Peterson. I'm not saying he's not a Hall of Famer, but Patrick Peterson on his last end of his career, he's playing with Pittsburgh right now. I think he's more of a guy that's a vocal presence than the actual vocal veteran presence than the actual play, right? I look at guys, and I'm using the same team, like Joe Hayden. Joe Hayden was definitely past his prime when he went to Pittsburgh, and just hasn't really been the same. Some of these guys that are free agents, you look at like the Kyle Van Noys, right? You look at some of these guys that are free agents, and maybe they're just not able to fit certain schemes anymore. Maybe they're just not what they used to be anymore. That's the reason why they are free agents. Now, there are some free agents that you're still scratching your head, like, how in the hell is this guy a free agent? Obviously, like a Dalvin Cook, but we all know he's probably waiting on the right situation for him. But next week or so, we'll start seeing more of these free agents get signed. Obviously either due to injury or because obviously the season started and they need to hurry up and get their ass in the locker room so they can, study this playbook. But for the most part, do you see any of these free agents making a splash with any of these teams moving forward? Or are these guys just going to wait until week 4, 5, 6 of the season to jump onto a team and hopefully help them win a Super Bowl this upcoming year?
I think it's definitely going to be one of those things similar to the situation in New Orleans. Suspension or injury is going to have to open up a spot for some of these guys to come in. I think a lot of them are kind of calculating, how much play time am I actually going to be able to get in on these teams. And that's a big part, because in order to continue in the league, in order to get the money that you may want, especially if you sign a 1-year contract, you're going to want to be on the field. You got to go and you got to play, and you got to show some sort of tape to somebody. So I think the more we get into, preseason, more injuries, suspensions we see, the more likely these guys are going to start popping up on, and we're going to hear more concrete things with them joining specific teams.
I love that commentary on that one. First one that says, I want to see live practices instead of preseason games. I actually love that. Now, the reason why
practice is going on right now.
Now, the reason why that won't happen, and I think he's talking about more of obviously team practices, Kansas City, Texans, things of that nature, is because practice honestly is pretty entertaining. Again, I know me and you Ish. I know when we played together, that was I think we had a lot of fun on the practice field. Obviously, we took everything very seriously. It wasn't like we were just out there joking and playing, playing butt touch all damn day. But it was one of those times where you learn who really is about that life, who really wants to go out there at 3:30 in 105-degree weather with all black helmets and go out there and go hit, who wants to go run out there for 2.5 hours to go out there and get better. And that's what I enjoyed when it comes to being with my brothers, ultimately working towards the ultimate goal, which is win that week for that upcoming season. So I might have to agree with you on that one, Fracture. We might have to find a way to let the NFL know, hey, go ahead and give us some film on this practice. Nobody care about the preseason games anymore. Fracture also says, Hunt back to Kansas City? Question mark.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's gonna happen. I think the ship sailed on that one.
Interesting. All righty then. As always, that is another episode of X Talking Ish. We appreciate y'all for tuning in tonight. As always, y'all can recap this show on any one of our streaming platforms, YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, aka Twitter, aka X. I don't know what you want to call it. You can call it whatever you want. Just know that whatever you call it, just make sure Elon Musk is happy with it before he deactivates your X account.
He won't get you.
And other than that, we will see y'all hopefully next Tuesday, unless other things come up. And before we get out of here as well, I just want to let y'all know once again, make sure y'all tune in to X Talking Ish this season, because you will be able to win a mini signed football by Leonard Williams of the New York Giants now, but at the time New York Jets. So if you're able to watch along throughout the season, we'll throw out some clues, and towards the end of the season, you'll be able to redeem them clues for a chance to win a signed helmet. So with that being said, we will see y'all next Tuesday at X Talking Ish. We appreciate y'all and see y'all